Welcome to another episode of Progress, Potential, and Possibilities, discussions with fascinating people designing a better tomorrow for all of us. I'm your host, Ira Pastor.
Welcome, everybody, again to another episode of our show, bringing another really awesome guest today involved in creating a better tomorrow. Today, we have the honor of being joined by Dr. Ha Hong, who is Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer at Medtronic Endoscopy. And there he oversees the artificial intelligence R&D and strategy, ultimately emphasizing the organization's building of responsible AI solutions for patient care. And he has a long track record of inventing and delivering these breakthrough technologies, specifically in the medical device field. Before joining Medtronic, Dr. Hong was a founding team member and chief architect at Caption Health. GE Healthcare acquired them, and there he led the R&D, including the development of the first commercially available AI navigation system for cardiac ultrasound examination. Dr. Hong started out, did his undergraduate degree in physics at the Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, then moved on to the University of Toronto. They're doing this really interesting Canadian Institute of Advanced Research, Neural Computation, and Adaptive Perception program, and then into his Ph.D. In medical engineering and medical physics with a specialty in neuroscience from the Harvard MIT Health Sciences and Technology program. And then just as an introduction to our audience, Medtronic Endoscopy is part of the Medtronic organization, the largest medical device company in the world, which has something like 90,000 employees and operates in something like 150 companies involved in many areas, including cardiac rhythm, disease management, spinal injury care, neuromodulation, to talk about a few. We're excited to have him. A lot to get into. Dr. Ha Hong, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show today.
Thank you for your wonderful introduction. Yeah, my name is Ha. I've been a lifetime tinkerer, engineer, and scientist. And for the last couple years, especially last 10 years, I've been living at the intersection between the artificial intelligence and medical device. And I had really fortunate opportunities around building really exciting AI-powered medical devices on a couple different exciting fields for the first time. And right now, I lead AI R&D at Medtronic Endoscopy Unit.
Excellent, really excellent. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to getting into all of these topics about what you're doing now, and would really love to start off just by, as we typically do, by handing you the floor for a few minutes to talk a little bit more about your background, because I mentioned you started off in physics, you started playing around in neuroscience and perception, and then fully into this whole area of medical physics. Talk a little bit about that early arc, if you would. What got you interested in STEM to begin with, but a little bit of that physics neuroscience transition. Would love to hear about the early days, if you could start off with that.
Absolutely. I just to back up a little bit or a lot. I grew up in a really tiny, super rural rice farming village in South Korea. It was a border town, so it was actually literally 6-7 miles away from the North and South Korean border.
Okay.
It was really rural, like endless rice field, green for miles and miles around my place. If I remember, all the things that I remember from my childhood was chasing dragonflies and frogs in the the rice pedal and and spending my entire day. But then I don't know, for some reason, at some point, I got interested in science and biology and computer science, and then I decided to study physics. That kind of catapult me into, I think, that in this entire journey. So it's, if you think about the physics, you might think that, hey, well, I mean, physics is so abstract and so kind of, mathematical, far from a medical device or neuroscience or artificial intelligence. But at least throughout the physical education during my undergrad, I got to learn how to model a complicated system in a proper way, so that I focus on the first terms or the major terms that can explain the entire system in a reasonable fashion, and somehow approximating the remaining components that are less important in a reasonable way. So that taught me, so the physics education taught me about how to model the entire world or universe. I know physicists can be quite arrogant from time to time, but they taught me how to interpret the system, complicated system, in a proper way. So that gave me a really good foundation. Towards the end of my undergrad years, I, at the same time, kind of realized that, well, physics, maybe if I pursue some other discipline other than physics, there can be more opportunity. So for example, neuroscience or computer science or some technology field, I was dabbling into multiple different things, and I don't know, I didn't plan out at all. I just somehow got attracted into neuroscience because, to me, neuroscience as of now in 21st century felt exactly like the physics during 15th, 16th, 17th century, where all the developments were happening. So I thought, well, maybe with this physics background and some, I don't know, some computational capability background, if I jump into neuroscience, maybe I may be able to do some interesting science. Hence, bandwagon jump into the new exciting field of neuroscience development. So that's why I switched to the neuroscience program, and I was really fortunate to be able to enter Harvard MIT Health Sciences and Technology program, where it had broad disciplines. It, of course, offered a neuroscience subspecialty, as well as multiple other subspecialties, including some formal education on medicine. So from there, I started to dabble into many different things. So I am, again, I'm not a person who plans for the future. So I basically dabbled into two complementary but fairly different disciplines of neuroscience: experimental neuroscience and computational neuroscience.
Right.
I wanted to do computational neuroscience because, okay, actually, let me back up a little bit. The topic that I was interested in was to understand the visual perception processing in the brain.
Right.
So literally, I wanted to understand how do human how does the human brain process and perceive the world around us? So, I mean, think about it. Well, I mean, right now in 2024, we all know that, some small computer devices like, iPhone can perform object recognition on common objects and scenes quite with really high impressive accuracies. But back then, when I was starting my PhD around 2009, that was still a holy grail. And there were some different disciplines. So computer science people, especially computer vision, wanted to get an answer for that.
Right.
There was another discipline, like, neuroscience-based discipline, basically aiming to provide explanation for that visual perception processing problem based on some good understanding on our own brain, the machine that we know that it can process the visual perception processing with high performance. So that was the kind of context. So we as a human, we can walk around and we can effortlessly see different kinds of objects, like this is my hand, and again,
Sure.
this is my cell phone. We just can't help but see those objects. It's almost mechanical. I basically wanted to understand the visual perception processing that starts from our own retina, that captures pixel images, so to say, and how those pixel information gets transformed in the subsequent neural processings, eventually giving rise to the perception
Yep.
of objects and all those visual properties, such as location, size, and attitude, etc. So for us to tackle this problem, I basically wanted to use so basically, tackling this problem and answering this problem is to create a computer model, computer program that
Yep.
takes images and spits out all those, predictions, like, again, object identity and class or size and all those kind of, object, perception properties. And for me to do that, I, of course, wanted to have a good technical foundation. So that's why I studied computational neuroscience.
Mm-hmm.
And from my previous experience, I knew that for me to create this kind of machine, I would need a huge amount of data. So that's why I decided to also tackle on the neuroscience, experimental neuroscience as well, so that I can collect the data that I can use to train the machine by myself, so that I have a kind of self-contained system.
Yep. No, it's fascinating. And again, for everyone listening and watching, Dr. Hung's dissertation is entitled Neural Mechanisms Underlying Core Visual Perception of Objects. And as you were just mentioning, in your dissertation, you specifically focus on this inferior temporal cortex, which is itself a fascinating area of the brain, sort of unexplored. And then you're publishing right afterwards about the deep neural networks that you're developing that, hey, do a pretty good job of representing this this inferior temporal cortex. So, I love the fact that there was the hardcore biology, but then you're simultaneously, developing the synthetic versions of this. And I thought that was quite, elegant in sort of that early research of yours, that these things happening side by side. It's interesting then that so we go from physics to neuroscience, but then, your first major then foray after that is into the cardiovascular space and sort of employing a lot of what you've learned, what you're developing, especially in the developing of these neural networks towards quite complex deep learning in the cardiovascular AI imaging space. And I would love if you could walk through a little bit of that time period. I think it's extremely important because it leads up to what you're doing now. And at the same time, you published several papers on the learnings from that era, not just the technology, but this is it's a very new technology. It's early. We have a bit to go, but nonetheless, there were some core learnings there that I think in papers like deep learning based automated echocardiograph quantification of left ventricular ejection fraction. Key learnings that you took away from that period in developing some of these novel AI tools at the early stage of the sort of their inception.
Absolutely. So again, I'm not a person who plans for the future, but I think that I've been very lucky. I've been very lucky in a sense that I was in the right place at the right time, and I met really talented and also very benevolent people who are willing to help each other. So I've been really fortunate in that regard. So what do I mean by I was at the right place at the right time? Well, around 2009, 2010, again, that was still kind of pre, that was before the recent wave of artificial intelligence, especially deep learning technology. So of course, people knew about deep learning technology for many years before then, but still, the real world evidence was still forming. So it was really amazing time. Technology was there, and people haven't really broadly appreciated what the deep learning and artificial intelligence technologies can actually do. So again, I um, I was pursuing the Holy Grail, which was to understand, like you said, the visual perception processing in the brain. And I studied both computational neuroscience and also experimental neuroscience. But I quickly came to realize that, wow, there's a technology called deep learning, right? And it can do lots and lots of amazing things. And I was at the CFAR program at U Toronto, like you said, and I interacted and met lots and lots of stunning and really top-notch researchers at the time, exchanging all those the forefront of the trend of deep learning at the time. So I was like, oh, I gotta use this technology on my own problem. I want to build a neural network program, neural network model that explains, predicts the visual perception processing in the brain, not just the eye to the object recognition, but all these steps in between, such as visual area 4, like you mentioned. So in that way, I was able to, with my colleagues, publish lots and lots of exciting papers talking about a building a neural network model that explains all different kinds of, not only the all different kinds of visual perception processing, but also on the intermediate, actual visual neural responses to the input images with high fidelity. So the model was able to explain not only the outputs, the perception side, but also the actual neural responses. That was really exciting to all of us. And on top of that, by doing so, we also contributed to the neuroscience, the fundamental neuroscience itself, that the basically broadening the understanding of the high-level visual area called inferior temporal cortex. Basically, previous to our time, people did know about IT, inferior temporal cortex can do lots and lots of things other than visual object recognition, and also can do some level of extra object category processing, such as localization or size estimation, stuff like that. But we basically were able to show that, well, from based on experimental evidence, IT can do, inferior temporal cortex can do lots of things more than people previously thought. And hey, by the way, this is also a computational model that might explain, I'm not saying this is a proof, might explain how the IT can achieve all different kinds of, activities and tasks. So it was really exciting. So long story short, my PhD was basically really around, understanding the visual perception processing. But then that really nicely tied it into the medical device, especially AI-powered medical device field. So the connection was through through my friend, a good friend of mine. His name is Charles Cadieu. He basically came to me one day towards the end of when I was about to finish my PhD. Came to me one day and started to talk about very exciting but crazy ideas like hey, basically people are dying. The number one killer of anyone, regardless you are in the US or outside of the US, the number one killer of people is the cardiovascular disease. And one of the best way to mitigate the cardiovascular disease is to look into heart. through ultrasound technology, cardiac ultrasound, and see what's going on inside. But then we realized that it's really difficult to train someone to properly acquire high quality cardiac ultrasound images, because
Hmm.
you gotta aim the ultrasound beam in a very proper way, exposing all relevant cardiac structures.
Yep.
And it is not something like you or your brain is wired and has been evolved through. So the problem is basically very different from like you navigating in the three-dimensional space. Basically, you look at two-dimensional slice at one at a time. And in the brain, you need to do reverse tomography. Which is not, again, our brain is trained to. Um, we thought about this problem, and all of a sudden something clicked in our brain, which is, well, how about we train AI deep learning model that looks at the incoming images from the ultrasound and basically tell, the system would tell the user to how to kind of navigate the system, the chest on the chest, so that at the end of the day, if you follow the instructions from the system, then you'd arrive at a ideal, positioning of the ultrasound transducer so that it maximally expose all the, relevant cardiac anatomies for diagnostic
Hmm.
purposes.
Hmm.
So, well, and in some sense, we even I know this might sound arrogant, but at the very beginning, we knew that it would work. Why? Because during our time at the research lab, we literally saw the big potential of AI deep learning by ourselves. And this is exactly what I studied during my PhD. It's basically it's an extension of visual object recognition.
Yep.
So you have input image, and you basically try to understand elements within it and try to back calculate how the image is, positioned in this particular case, all those cardiac structures and etc. in the image in a certain way, so that based upon that, from deep learning processing, it's possible to deduce the ultrasound probe or transducer positioning location relative to the heart. And based on that, we can provide, this is your current location. And if you want to get to the target location, you gotta move you gotta make that kind of, adjustment, etc. So,
Hmm.
um, so it was a really fun journey for us. And it's it was a serendipity. It was by chance. Again, me started to doing this artificial intelligence in general and getting me into this intersection between AI and medical device.
Hmm.
Um, but it ended up panning out really nicely.
Yeah, no, it clearly it clearly seems you're at the right place at the right time with each of these. Are going from the brain to the heart, and we'll get to the GI story in a minute. But I want to go one other place because as I mentioned in the beginning, Medtronic is the largest medical device company in the world, involved in lots of different therapeutic domains. But I found it most interesting that when you go to the Medtronic website nowadays, instead of a bunch of stuff, when you go to the homepage, instead of a bunch of stuff coming up with all the products, like the first thing you run into is this article by Dr. Ken Washington, Medtronic's Chief Technology and Innovation Officer. It basically says, "Are you ready for the AI revolution in healthcare?" And it lists a bunch of things in terms of, hey, ultimately, this AI stuff is going to become trusted for doctors. It's going to make patients healthier. It's going to make the whole system smarter. And there's a major revolution happening. Say a couple words, if you would, just about Medtronic in general and sort of AI and Medtronic, because clearly it's everywhere within the system. And then introduce your new role. What is a chief artificial intelligence officer? How to get to Medtronic in the first place, and then after that, we'll get into everything that's going on with endoscopy and GI Genius and all that stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah. Happy to provide some color around that topic. So at Medtronic, as a whole, we are making a bet on the future that medical device is moving towards, more AI defined and software defined medical devices. And for that, we definitely recognize the requirement of meeting the clinical efficacy as well as the safety. And we definitely recognize those, important, aspects. And at the same time, for us to deliver the required clinical efficacy and safety, we really focus on a process, a procedure to create the AI system in a responsible way.
Mhm.
I will be happy to talk about that topic. It deserves a separate, discussion.
Yeah,
But
we will.
we really double click on that reliable AI topic, so that we basically we put the patient first, we put our physicians and clinician users first, so that once we create a system that's gonna be safe and effective, and we will be proud of the product that we will have created. On top of that, because of that consideration, we also codified some of the processes and key considerations that have to be taken during the AI development process. For example, we recently published an article called Medtronic AI Compass. It's a
Yep.
public white paper, and everyone who's interested in that, please read that. I will also happy to talk about that topic a little bit more.
Sure.
But basically, we put a lot of effort into, making a AI system in a reliable way. Another important topic is that, putting emphasis on human in the loop.
Yep.
So in this particular case, the clinicians. So we do want to empower clinicians. We do want to create AI system that is understandable, better understandable by clinicians, the users, so that we do not, for example, override any of their clinical judgment making processes. We do want to empower, we do want to provide more information in a clinically relevant way. So that's another emphasis that we put into the device making process. So having said that, what I do at my own endoscopy unit is that I oversee the AI R&D processes and provide both strategical and longer term vision, and at the same time, some tactical guidances. Basically, filling the entire spectrum of the tactical processes versus, the longer term vision processes, and representing the AI engineers and all the nitty-gritty details from the top-down level, but also translating the business requirements into the individual contributors in a engineering language. So that's one major role that I do here at the endoscopy unit. Another thing that I contribute is that I also contribute to the enterprise level. So I'm a part of Ken Washington's AI leadership team at
Mm.
Medtronic level. And we do spend a lot of time on making our processes more efficient. Also, we do recognize that, well, Medtronic is a uniquely positioned company in a way that we do lots of R&D in medical device, like you mentioned. At the same time, so far, we've been doing some, especially around the AI and machine learning R&D in a heterogeneous way. We do recognize that. And now we want to bring those heterogeneous attempts into a well harmonized system that can be leveraged at the enterprise level. So we sit down together as a group and talk about, ways and make some action items that we can take so that we can, move the needle in a positive way, so that, Medtronic as a whole would be able to perform AI R&D in a more efficient way.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about and thank you for that background to the unit. But let's really dive into the really first major core uh, technology of the unit, which is GI Genius Intelligent Endoscopy Module. And we have explored sort of the colorectal cancer numbers in the past. I was looking at 2023 numbers from NCI. So we're talking something like 153,000 new cases in 2023, 52,500 deaths. There's something like a 65% 5-year survival, but a major part of that is early detection, and clearly colonoscopies are a major part of that. What you're doing is adding a layer to, and you can talk a little bit about sort of this adenoma detection rate and what sort of increasing that just by a little bit does to the reduction in the risk of cancer development and getting these polyps early. Talk about sort of the history of GI Genius. I know there's other firms that you collaborate with to create it, in terms of NVIDIA and some smaller shops, but talk a little bit about the background and a little bit of what's being achieved here, because I think these numbers are extremely impressive.
Yeah.
Please.
Absolutely. The GI Genius platform and technology is the first FDA-approved computer-aided detection system in terms of detecting polyps and especially adenomas during the colonoscopy procedures. It is, like you said, it aids. You can think of that system as a constantly working, diligently, working a second pair of eyes of physician. It looks every single frame and detects the polyps, and even if the polyps are small and very difficult to recognize, especially those kind of second pair of eyes can be very helpful, especially towards the end of your day, doing lots and lots of colonoscopies and when you got tired. And those kind of second pair of detection system can catch difficult to detect polyps in a reliable way. We've performed many clinical and also engineering level tests. The system demonstrated that more than 99% of sensitivity with less than 1% of false positive ratio. Also, the system has demonstrated that with GI Genius, your adenoma detection rate, so adenoma is the certain type of polyp that's right before getting into the cancerous stage. So it's very important for you to detect at that stage. So very important, because just to back up a little bit, the colorectal cancer is one of the most common cancer. It's more top 2, top 3, and it is affecting a lot of people, like you mentioned. Fortunately, if you detect the polyps early enough, then the cure rate can be as high as 90%. So early detection is the key. So with GI Genius system, we demonstrated that the adenoma detection rate increases by up to 14.4%. And that's actually quite amazing, because each 1% increase in ADR, adenoma detection rate, is thought to be corresponding to a 3% decrease in cancer risk.
Right.
So it's almost like 50% reduction in the cancer interval cancer risk. So we are very excited to demonstrate that. So the GI Genius system, to talk about a little bit of the history, yes, it's the first computer-aided detection system of colorectal cancer polyps, and the development was done by a partner company called Cosmo. So they've done laborious and thorough acquisition of the data, model development, model selection, and the clinical validation, and also going through the FDA regulatory processes. We are closely collaborating with them because, well, Cosmo is such a great partner company. Well, I mean, theoretically, hypothetically, Cosmo can go into the market by themselves with the GI Genius system they created. But at the same time, Medtronic Endoscopy unit, we could create some GI system like GI Genius system by ourselves from the beginning. But it's either approach is gonna be taking much longer, and that's not good for none of us, including the physicians and the patients.
Right.
We do want to move forward. We do want to elevate this, early detection of colorectal cancers and polyps as soon as possible. So that's why we struck this partnership, closely collaborating with Cosmo so that they move as fast as possible. Also doing good AI research and creating the AI systems in a responsible and a reliable way. And at the same time, we provide all the support for doing the research, and plus all the reduce the burden of the distribution of the system, so that the system, once it created, it actually does get into the hands of the physicians soon as possible in a reliable and responsible way again. So that's the kind of the history of the GI Genius development and also the distribution market release.
And it's interesting, one of the and this comes to, because I know you've been interviewed quite a bit recently on sort of a lot of the key learnings on what is important as you develop these novel AI medical devices and bring them to market. And I think two really interesting in one of the articles I read, really two important points. One, that you make about sort of this less is more concept when it comes to these offerings to gastroenterologists in this case that have not used AI in the past, but also the importance of explainability, because here I am, I'm just an average dude, but I look at some of these AI presentations that folks give sometimes, and it's just they show in the networks and all the learnings. No, at the end of the day, I think my GI doctor wants a simple, explainable system that how this thing here, in this case the GI Genius, makes my life easier and my diagnosis faster and more accurate. Talk a little bit about that. I think the whole explainability and simple explainability is extremely important in the development of these projects. I think you talk a little bit about that, if you would.
Absolutely. So before getting to the explainability, let me back up a little bit and talk also about some very important fundamental aspect as well, which is thinking really hard about the choice of the problem, the clinical problem that
Yep.
you aim to solve. So one thing that I would like to emphasize for everyone who's interested in building AI-powered medical devices, especially from the startup companies, I highly recommend that please pick the problem that matters.
Right.
So please do not start from the technology. Actually, please talk to the physicians and patients and figure out the problem, the clinical problem they have, the pain, and all those, all those things that prevent them to have the best care, prevent them to provide the best care to the patients. So please do figure out, please start from a good and clear understanding of a clinical problem that you'd like to solve.
Yep.
And then everything should follow from that. Assuming that you started from that approach, then now we can go through the development process and create the AI system. Explainability comes in that stage. So at the end of the day, once you create an AI system, and if the AI system is interacting with the physician, i.e., if the AI system is designed in such a way that it needs to interact with the clinical user, not making its own decisions, although this kind of discussion can also apply to that point as well. So in that case, the system has to communicate with the human, with the clinician.
Yep.
And if the system does not know how to communicate effectively with the human user, then they will not gonna use that, or at least they will not gonna use your product in an effective way. And it's really sad because perhaps your algorithm, your model, may be quite highly performant as its own, as standalone. But if the communication is broken, they will not gonna fully utilize that, the full capability. So for us to communicate, for us to provide the clinicians the AI suggestions in an effective way, we need to really look at the workflow. So for example, in the colorectal cancer screening, the way they perform the colonoscopy procedure is that they go through the entire colon cavity, and they withdraw the colonoscope so that they meticulously go through the entire visual surface of the colon. The you can think of many different ways to provide some AI suggestions to the physicians. Maybe you can think about, I don't know, you can flag a certain frame that that is indicative of the suspected lesion or polyp in the frame. Yep. That's one approach. Another approach can be, they can also put some bounding boxes around the polyp so that the physicians will be able to better pinpoint and direct their attention to the suspected lesion.
Mm-hmm.
Arguably, the second approach is better because it provides more intuitive AI alerts, and also it directs the attention of the physicians right into the region that is tied to highly elevated existence of the lesion. So you can also go into this route multiple times, perhaps maybe not only providing the bounding boxes, but also you can think about it, providing some extra information, such as some classification of subtypes of the polyps, or maybe providing some severity levels, or maybe providing some extra information about why you derived, why you came to, and the kind of supporting, numbers in terms of, the diseases that you created. So those kind of, evidences and, communications that the system can provide to the physician can be highly well appreciated. Of course, we have to stop at some point because, we don't want to bombard with the physician too much information. That's not good. But I think that finding a good balance between providing to a paucity or lack of information versus bombarding with too much information, we at Medtronic Endoscopy Unit and also at Cosmo, we work very closely with physicians, with different groups of and different expertise levels of physicians, so that we can understand their workflow as best as we can, so that we can provide just right amount of information that they would highly appreciate. So that's the explainability level at the model. I want to quickly touch base on the next a slightly different level of explanation. So
Please.
Once we create the model and release the product, of course, model will communicate and interact with the physicians by itself. I mean, in a way, in the designed way. But then our responsibility as a device manufacturer does not stop there. We still have a responsibility to explain what we built to the medical community and other, interesting groups. So that's why we do focus a lot on scientific and clinical and also use case publications so that, well, this is the model, this is the system we built, and here's the explanation, here's the justification. And on top of that, when the system gets utilized and deployed on the actual real-world clinical settings, this is the performance that you get. We do not enforce, we do not curate, we actually encourage third-party independent researchers studying our system so that we would be able to, as a community, see the real-world performance characteristics across broad different, kinds of clinical environment as thoroughly as possible. And that's what we are seeing in the GI Genius case. So for example, if you go to the Google Scholar and type, GI Genius and performance or clinical validation, you get to see lots and lots of, more than 10 pages of the results. I would say, maybe perhaps more than 100, indices. The actual number of, articles, especially the original research articles, maybe at least I would say at least it's gonna be higher than 20 high quality articles. And many of them are not sponsored by Medtronic.
One of the things you mentioned earlier, and I think you're pretty passionate about, is again the responsibility side of all this, responsible AI solutions. You mentioned the Medtronic AI Compass, and we'll link to that in the bio of the show. But the Compass has a bunch of the guiding principles of Medtronic per these technologies. And when you come down to, I think it's principle number 5, it's all about human control and oversight. And I know, again, you've talked in the past, and I've seen interviewed talking about not just the importance of humans staying in control of the AI, but feeding back information to the AI, obviously, and sort of this AI human connection and constantly learning and improving the system. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, obviously, talk about the responsible AI side of things, but this is a really important piece of that about humans staying in control, because I think it concerns a lot of people in general about AI nowadays, but I think it's very important as you increase the intelligence of these AI systems, especially in some of the fine detailed work you're doing.
Absolutely. So responsible AI creation, if I have to boil down into a single sentence, it's really about putting the patient first and creating a safe and effective system. What does it actually mean? Well, again, it starts with the very basic thing, which is, you got to pick a clinical problem that can actually help clinicians and patients. Starting from that and, creating a system that is, that it has been tested, clinically validated, so that it can justify and it can demonstrate in a statistical and scientific way that this system actually achieves this level of performance for this group of subjects or patients. So making those, providing some solid clinical justification is also an important aspect of responsible AI creation. In terms of the human in the loop, it's let me give you an example where so back in the days before deep learning or AI, of course AI has been around, but back in the days, let's say 90s and around the time, maybe around the time, if you look at chess playing, the best performer was human, okay? And then soon, computer system, AI system, well, beat the world chess champion, and people were concerned. People thought that, well, maybe there's no future of chess playing, and we are all doomed. But the actual thing that that came after that, interesting observation was that, well, neither human player alone nor computer system alone is the best chess player. Having a system, having a cooperative relationship between human expert combined with AI, high-performance AI system gives you the best performance in terms of the chess playing. I think that the same analogy applies here in the medical device. We educate and also we provide the clinicians, the users, the right information for them to use the AI system in the most effective ways. At the same time, as a device manufacturer, we create an AI system in a responsible way and a transparent way. We publish and open up all those key performance characteristics and also describe the system, the makings of the system in the medical and clinical journals in the scientific way.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the key component is that the physicians should be educated in such a way that they would not blindly use the AI outputs, period.
Right.
Okay? And at the same time, again, the system itself should be performant. It should provide some meaningful clinical efficacy so that it would not burden the clinicians. If the clinicians, otherwise the AI system will not gonna add the value to this ecosystem. So the bottom line is that the best case scenario is to promote a symbiotic relationship between the clinical experts and the AI systems such that they work together. So the human clinicians would override whenever AI, for example, makes mistakes, and the AI would flag some of the instances when the clinicians may, miss and or overlook because humans are not perfect. Neither is perfect, but the error patterns between the humans and also the AI systems are different, so that now we can complement with each other. That's the goal.
Really outstanding. Um, what's coming up next in terms of the endoscopy unit? Because again, I really enjoyed this one article. This was a couple weeks ago actually. It was in the Medical Design and Outsourcing, and it was you, Dr. Washington, and Medtronic CEO Dr. Martha, talking about things like obviously the polyps were obviously one target, but there's a lot of other things in the GI tract that these technologies can be used for. And then obviously, talking about sort of the digital surgery and all that, a lot of the therapeutic component of this, following diagnostic. What else is happening that you can talk about in terms of the potential for these tools in the GI space, which is where you are, and then just the things that obviously are coming off GI Genius that feed into all the other important business units of the Medtronic organization.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about this important topic. So let me start with my own endoscopy unit first, and then we can talk a little bit more about the Medtronic level. So at endoscopy OU level, operating unit level, we have, of course, GI Genius. This is our solid, cleared, AI-powered medical device for colonoscopy, especially polyp detection. The same, we can repeat the success story on other products within our endoscopy unit. I will not gonna give you specific examples.
No
You can
worries.
go to our website and you can make your own imagination. But
Sure.
basically, we can take the similar or same technology. So let's say the pathology detection system, basically for a given input image, identifying the location and also the extent of the pathology. We take the same technology or similar technology and we can expand. We can repeat the same process on our different products. And it is coming. We are actively working on that. And I cannot talk about the exact timeline, but
No.
it's gonna be exciting. We are actively working on that. On top of that, there is a platform called GI Genius AI Access Platform. It is, in a nutshell, a AI or software as medical device app store. So we have GI Genius system that we talked about so far, and the GI Genius system comes in a hardware deployment. So it's not just software. When we distribute this system into the hospital systems, the GI Genius also comes with a really high performant AI capable workstations. The workstations are already out there in the GI suites. There are a lot of workstations, and we realized an opportunity. Well, which opportunity? This workstation is already capable of running. I mean, it's too bad if we utilize this workstation only for GI Genius AI software. It can support basically arbitrarily AI medical device softwares, period.
Okay.
We realized that we already have a good user base that have with those hardware workstations that is AI ready and capable. And now we with the partnership with Cosmo, we created a platform called the GI Genius AI Access Platform. It's basically, again, an app store. You can even go to the AI Access development page even today. You can type Google AI Access Cosmo, then you will get to a link. Basically, you can create your own AI application. And once you go through the proper validation and regulatory clearance processes, your app would be able to host it on the AI Access platform.
Mm.
And the physician would be able to download, if they're interested in the app, the cleared and validated app from our AI Access App Store. And then they can immediately will be able to run the app from the AI Access platform. It's actually quite exciting. It's a way to democratize the innovation process for not just for big players like Medtronic, but also for small startup companies as well as research institutions. This basically, removes the burden of their spending too much time on the distribution channels.
Right.
But we can focus really on the R&D, which they are really good at, and they go the development process, and under our supervision and guidance, they go through the proper AI response and proper way of creating AI in a responsible way, go through the validation process, go through the regulatory clearance for the target jurisdiction they are interested in. And once they pass all those, proper steps, then they will be able to host the applications they created on the App Store AI Access platform. In that way, we are really excited that it will democratize and accelerate the innovation process in this interesting intersection between AI and medical device.
Yeah,
So one, yes, you have a question
no, I
on
was just
that?
no, I was just going to say that's it's a very elegant alternative to sort of the older approach. You know, 'cause obviously there's hundreds of small startup AI companies out there that I guess in the old days would, try to get in touch with you and come in and pitch you on something.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
it seems like this is a much more hand-holding that allows, small companies to learn from you and obviously you to access, a lot of sort of the new stuff that's coming down the pike. So no, that's quite elegant, I have to say.
Yeah, thank you. Exactly. Yeah, you pointed it out. You summarized by, lots and lots of description around GI Genius AI Access platform in a few sentences. So thank you for that. And as I myself am coming from a startup company, and
Right.
I'm personally excited about that because I can see like lots and lots of instances where this platform can enable small startup companies. So again, accelerating the innovation in the entire field and benefiting patients and clinicians along the way. So I'm really excited about that. Um, a couple more, initiatives that we are doing is that so March is approaching, and March is the colorectal cancer awareness month.
Okay.
Um, and we recognize that yes, R&D is one important aspect, but at the end of the day, the product, the technology that we created, um, needs to get into the hands of the physicians so that it can be utilized and actually treat the patients. So we are planning for many exciting initiatives coming month so that
Okay.
we can increase the awareness. There are many instances where people do not yet either know the existence of the GI Genius um, platform or still doubtful about the GI Genius system. We throughout this, initiative throughout, colorectal cancer awareness month, we do want to disseminate the knowledge and the transparency about our GI Genius system so that, more people would get aware of the technology, the exciting technologies that's out there
Hmm.
that could potentially help more people, again, detecting polyps in a more reliable and more sensitive way.
And in addition to colorectal cancer month, anything, because I know you've been getting out there quite a bit on the conference circuit, and anything else that we should know about as we get further into 2024 in terms of conferences, talks, other venues where we may watch you, listen to you, possibly run into you to talk about these topics. Anything that I missed while we have you, please.
If I would highly recommend anyone who's interested in to follow us, Medtronic Endoscopy. You need LinkedIn or any other social media platforms. Also, I'm reachable at LinkedIn as well. So if you're interested in and want to continue the conversation, yes, please reach out to us.
Awesome. And yeah, we will put all those links again in the bio of the show, and do our part in helping to spread the word about everything that's going on, and not just in your shop, but the Medtronic organization. Really awesome story. It's exciting to hear these innovations, not just at the technical level, but ultimately being translated and getting out there to clinicians and patients per your mission at the company. So no, it's really exciting times. I look forward to continue to follow your story. Again, for everybody that is going to be listening to this particular episode of our show across the various podcast networks or watching on our YouTube channel, again, you've been spending time with Dr. Ha Hong, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer, Medtronic Endoscopy. Ha, I want to again thank you for taking the time out of your schedule to come talk to us, to educate us for a little while. Thank you everything you do on the healthcare front, and as we like to say here on our show, thanks for helping to create a better tomorrow for so many people out there. Really a great story, and I appreciate you sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me. Yeah, I really enjoyed the conversations with you, and also I feel really grateful for you to giving me this opportunity because again, creating the AI is one thing, but
Yeah.
creation in a reliable and responsible way is important. But also, and on top of that, inputs all those considerations on the entire activity, focusing on the clinical problem that actually matters. And also, once you created the algorithm, focusing on the explainability and proper validation and communication of what you created to broader community, including clinical and scientific communities, is very important. We don't stop there. We want to be transparent and talking about all those important topics in an open and transparent way. And I really value the venue like this a lot. So thank you.
It was great message, great having you. And as I said, I'm going to continue to follow and help you spread the message. So really great having you.